One of the things that you mentioned was burnout. I think the way our healthcare system is set up, burnout is something that all healthcare workers, regardless of what specialty they're in, are feeling. And in fact, you could take it further. It's everyone in life, I feel like. And that has to do with the demands of everything going on. And we're humans. We have to take a step back and honor that we're mind, body, spirit.
Hello, my friend, and welcome to Something for Everybody. My name is Aaron Mashpitz. Dr. Remina, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. My first and most important question is, how are you doing? Like, actually, for real, how are you doing?
That's a very honest and deep question. And to be fair, it's been an overwhelming day. You know, not many people ask the physician, and right now I'm on the entrepreneurial side as I switch over, but nobody actually stops and asks you. So thank you for asking. Definitely overwhelmed today. Lots of moving parts during the day. And then, of course, switching into not only wrapping up the day, but also being creative and also mom life side. So a little overwhelmed, but that's okay. I'm going to breathe through it and we're going to make it.
Yeah. Just listening to some podcasts you're on and reading more about your story, you wear a ton of different hats. And it's very, I think cool is maybe an understatement, but we'll use that word for now. It's very cool to see some of your different passions sort of lay out, all surrounding, I assume, is your big purpose of helping people. I assume that's what drives you. But and I always find it very interesting that people in the helping space, whether it be like doctors, physicians, coaches, teachers, they very rarely get asked how they're doing because their whole life is centered around helping other people. And I think that's where like the burnout lies and just exhaustion. And I think that's somewhere where these lifestyle or wellness tips can be placed in just for the everyday people who are very busy like you, who have kids and a job and another job and this job and that job and all these sorts of things that have to go on, right? Because I think a lot of the internet focuses on like unrealistic expectations. But if we can get down to the really important stuff, like here's some 1 to 3 basic ideas that if you can master, your life will probably be a little bit better, even amidst the chaos or the overwhelm.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, you definitely said it correctly. And you don't have to do everything other people are doing and make it look easy because it's what fits you and what drives you. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. My first question is about your time in the Air Force and overseas. What did you learn? What did you learn there about yourself? Maybe where you wanted to go with your life or lessons you took away from that?
Oh gosh, yeah, that was a lifetime ago. That was I believe it was my 18-year-old mind. My 18-year-old mind, and that she grew a lot. So I would say some of the most impactful lessons I learned and took away from my time serving in the Air Force, and mostly I would say the most impactful moment was in Iraq, in the war zone, because that's where you could either take that hostile situation and learn from it, or it can destroy you. And I feel like a lot of the times when people get out of the military, it could go either way. So I took that as something to build my character. That gave me the confidence. My 18-year-old mind figured out how to be, well, I wouldn't say I figured out. I've always been resilient. I just was able to use that moment and capitalize on how I could be more resilient. And in that time, yes, maybe it was mentally, also physically, but all encompassing resilience is what I learned. And also the confidence. And I took those tools with me from that war zone along with the entire experience in the Air Force. And I used that to the person, the Remina I am today. And I use it to serve others.
Yeah, it's amazing. Amazing. You mentioning your 18-year-old self makes me think about myself at 18 and I'm about to get married in a few months, which is incredible, but my 18-year-old self would be like, "Dude, what the fuck are you doing?" Also, how did you manage to keep a woman to like you this long? Because when I was 18, I was a bit of a nutcase. But anyways, so it's it's cool to think about sort of the evolutions of us as human beings, like different chapters and different stages of our lives, and who we become, and what was essentially potentially always inside of us, and how we let it blossom and grow by moving into different spaces and challenging ourselves by freaking joining the Air Force and going overseas. That's not a small challenge, to say the least. So it's cool when you look back at that and see like, wow, I've really come a long way and done a lot of things. Because you probably know this, especially in the entrepreneurial space, where it's like it's really hard to get things moving and get things off the ground, that we very rarely tell ourselves that we're doing a good job, because it's so challenging and so tough, and we want to keep moving forward and do the thing we're trying to do. So I always think that's a positive thing, to be like, man, can't come a long way, doing a lot of great stuff. Still more to go, but it's also important to acknowledge that, I think.
No, thank you. Yeah, absolutely. And we do sometimes need to take a step back on our journeys and appreciate where we came from. Like you said, on the entrepreneurial space, not everything is mapped out. It's part of the creativity, the expression, and seeing where it takes you and following your passion. But yeah, taking a pause of where you started and key components of your journey that led you to the person you are today, right? Like you said, your 18-year-old mind is different from today. So it makes everyone unique. And I love hearing everyone's stories too.
Yeah, it's one of the most rewarding parts of having these conversations on this podcast, is get to meet. Well, it's mostly self-indulging. I just bring people on that I want to learn from and find very interesting. So that's really all it is. But anyways, we can, yeah. But I think a main conversation topic that I wanted to have with you is what's happening in our healthcare system, and why you've made the addition to have this sort of functional medicine as well as working at a hospital in your practice. But I guess the first place to start would be, what are some of the biggest issues you see with conventional medicine now, that maybe we need to tackle or overcome?
Oh, definitely. I mean, we could go on for hours on this, but I'll keep it high level. One of the things that you mentioned was burnout. I think the way our healthcare system is set up, burnout is something that all healthcare workers, regardless of what specialty they're in, are feeling. And in fact, you could take it further. It's everyone in life, I feel like. And that has to do with the demands of everything going on. And we're humans. We have to take a step back and honor that we're mind, body, spirit. So that's one. The burnout rate, because of everything that the healthcare system is, it's a business. And physicians, we don't go into medicine thinking it's a business. We go in because we want to help people. And it's evolved into, I would say, it's always stakeholder interest now. And what that means is it's no longer really help the physicians, and I say nurses as well. Everyone in medicine, it's yes, you want to help people, but it's such a complicated system that stakeholder interests are primary. Patients, yes, you're there to help them, but it's a business. So I would say one of the biggest drawbacks of our healthcare system is that it's a business and it's in the hands of the insurance company. So you can't fully give your best to all the patients because all you have time for is a bandage approach. And yes, our healthcare system is great for acute care. So, and I always refer back to this. So if you have a heart attack or if you have a stroke, then by all means, the hospital setting is there because you want to put a bandage on it. Otherwise you'll die if, ends worst case scenario. But bandage approach is what the hospital is good at. What is missing is this big gap, a population of patients that don't necessarily need acute care, right? There's a whole population that would benefit in between if you truly optimize before symptoms start and then you end up in the hospital. And the way our system is set up now is like the last 10 years of your life, aging, it's decrepit. It's a decrepit illness, right? And it shouldn't have to be that way, but it is. The last 10 years of life, you're in and out of the hospital. Quality of life is not the best. So how are you truly living, right? That's where I come into functional medicine because it fills that gap. The amount of people that benefit, you don't necessarily have to be sick in the conventional sense. It could be, what symptoms are you feeling? Let's get to root cause. Let's not put a bandage on it, throw more medicine at it, but let's get to root cause and get back to lifestyle, right? I mean, when you go to a conventional medicine physician, it's always going to be bandage and medicine, right? If you look at even the standard of care, if you look at diabetes, for instance, right? So your glucose and your insulin is out of balance and you get diagnosed with diabetes, simple terms, right? But what's the first line that is always recommended? It's lifestyle. But what is lifestyle, right? So instead of going to lifestyle, some people just throw medicine, but it is more complicated and it's different for everyone because we're all unique, right? So maybe your diabetes per se is diagnosed because there's some other underlying root cause, but it's getting masked because you're throwing medicine at it without adding in the additional lifestyle component, which is so impactful, right? So how's the sleep? How's your nutrition? How's your exercise? How's your stress? Because stress throws your entire system out and throws your hormones off too. So if you look at the entire system at itself, that's where functional medicine fills in the gap. And the more you focus on root cause and personalize the approach, I think the better off overall society will be. And I love that. It's just beautiful. You could impact so many people with that approach.
Is that why you made the transition out? Like, because I know during COVID it was a tough time for everyone, especially people on the front lines, like doing like real serious hard work. Is that when you found that maybe it was time for you to start your own thing, or when did you get interested in functional medicine, and how does it play a part with you at the hospital? And I know your own business that you have.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you for that. I would say yes. COVID was a big driving factor of my burnout and made me look at everything in a different way. That what's missing? I went into medicine to help people, and I don't see people as just a body of organs. We are mind, body, spirit. And I went into it, medicine, because yes, lifestyle is impactful. And so you could label it holistic, because in its term, it is holistic. And I wanted to do that. So that's why I got down the path of functional medicine. And yes, although yes, I'm still doing shifts at the hospital, acute care is important. It also pays my bills until I could fully go entrepreneurial spirit in many avenues. So yes, because that's what pays the bills. I do see both Eastern and Western. And that's what I love about functional medicine. You're combining both Eastern and Western medicine, and it's based off of science, but you add in the lifestyle that is so impactful and unique. So that is what's missing at the
Yeah.
hospital, because by the time I see you in the hospital,
I
it's too
do.
late.
What was that last part?
Oh, by the time I see patients at the hospital, it's already too late. They missed out on the opportunity to optimize everything. So it's true prevention until you end up in the hospital where it's a little too late.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that should be something that we talk to our kids about very early on. Like, how are you eating, moving, sleeping, and thinking? And those are your core pillars. Let's get really, really good at, putting the correct nutrients in our body, like most of the time, not 100% of the time. That's impossible. Like, you can still have ice cream and some of these things, but if majority of the time you're eating real foods and you're not drinking your sugar, and like you have this sort of idea of what is good for your body, like you're moving. Movement is like lifting weights is like number one, I think, paramount, but some people don't like lifting weights. So maybe just like something else to get active and be outside and have some sunlight and dance with your friends or do yoga and all these sorts of things, and it all correlates. But if we can teach that to people at a very young age, now when they do maybe start to struggle with something that's going on, they already have this base layer of, really solid habits. Now what else is going on? Okay, now it may be potentially okay to involve a medicine because like I'm just not getting better. Things aren't working because I've tried all these other things. I'm sleeping 7 to 9 hours. I have all this stuff. I have a stress resiliency plan, but it's just like not getting any better. And so then you can start to move forward with some of these other conventional methods, but you have to treat the person, as a real life human being with other things that might be happening outside of just like these, core pillars or conventional pillars that you can only maybe see in a 10-minute conversation or a 5-minute conversation or whatever the case may be.
Exactly. And what you said about starting kids early, you look at so much influence out there, sugar, processed foods, and it does. If you start eating that when you're little, imagine what that does to your mind, your emotions. Yeah, and then of course, you think about that child goes to school and then they're labeled as ADHD, right? So I
Mm-hmm.
mean, you throw medicine at it. And again, like you said, if you need it, once you optimize your lifestyle factors and you do everything you're supposed to and you start at a young age, yes, of course, splurging once in a while, that's great. That's that metabolic flexibility. That's, helps you use your fuel, but then also have fun when you want to and your body can move on. But, it just goes to, if you miss out on that and you have patients that just go straight to medicine, you're missing out on all that. Like, what are you eating? Like you said, you're putting that child or just who eventually becomes an adult, that lifestyle will carry through and it could change the trajectory of how they live their next decade of life. So absolutely all of those factors, all those pillars are important.
Yeah. What are you thinking about with your kids? How are you trying to implement some of these healthy lifestyle habits with them now going forward?
Yeah, I mean, we definitely get outside. We definitely get outside. That's so important. Get that sunshine, get that circadian rhythm, everything that's important to get moving, influence that healthy lifestyle. But they're boys, they're kids. So they're gonna have the sweet tooth, which is okay. And I try my best to let them eat a well balanced meal. And okay, once in a while, we can have a piece of chocolate or we can have a piece of, whatever muffin is there at their kids at the kids daycare or whatever the case is. But I think the importance is not depriving them, right? Because then they don't learn self-control. You can
Mm.
set them up to be independent thinkers. Hey, this is good for you. See how your body feels. You go outside, you get that energy moving, you eat real good food. And I remember the other day, actually, this is the funny story. The other day, my 5-year-old was like, Mom, my tummy hurts. I was like, well, that's your body telling you because you overdid it, right? When I tell you what it's not okay to keep eating a lot of sugar all the time. Well, that's your body telling you. So, I can be their wise voice, their mom to lead them, but they're going to learn. Their body's going to speak to them, right? So I try to guide them to do not only the movement, but also eating right and okay once in a while. But also what a lot of, I would say society in general, we have such a mental health crisis. And if you can target early on, give them the tools simply, then I think that's important too. So that's one pillar. Another pillar I emphasize on. So of course, their brain is still developing. A lot of their emotions are difficult to regulate. But even if I start simple tools such as breathe, that
Mm.
resonates with them. Like, all right, let's take a deep breath. Let's breathe. Let's breathe. And so eventually it will they'll learn it and they can regulate their nervous system eventually. I just have to teach them, give them the tools, and one day it will stick. That's one. And they actually see me practicing. So I'm not just showing them, telling them. I'm showing them, but I'm also telling them, look, mom needs to take care of herself so she can be the best version for you. So not only am I guiding you, you could see what I'm doing. And so, like you said, the weights, like sometimes if I can't make it to the gym or the yoga studio, I have some weights and they'll sit there with me. They'll do the weights with me. They'll do whatever high intensity interval training I'm doing. They're going to do it with me. If I do yoga or some sort of stretching, they see me do it. So that's how I set them up to have the tools and practice those lifestyle uh, components. I'm there, right?
Mm.
I'm right with them.
That's huge. It's so huge. Like I try to do the same thing with my 9-year-olds in terms of the breathing exercises.
Mhm.
Like there seems to be this weird amount of pressure for 9-year-olds playing baseball. And a lot of it's coming from the parents who are just like stressed out. They want their kid to do really well. So they're like really tense. And then the kid is tense. And I'm over here like just trying to relax. I'm keeping it cool. And so they are trying to do the same thing. If I tell the parents all the time, like, if you want your kid to feel calm, cool, and collected in a baseball game, he's going to be looking at you. You're his parent. You're his mom. He's not looking at me all the time. He's seeing where you are, what you're doing, because he wants to mimic that behavior. So if you're in the stands just like, it's a nice day for baseball, and you're just relaxed, and he's going to be the same way, feeling that same energy that you're giving off. And so I think it's really important because kids, as you know, as you just displayed with your own children, like we care way more about what you do than what you say. And seeing you work out is like, man, huge. Like, coming from a boy and now a man who has a lot of love and respect for his mom, it's amazing what young boys will do for their mom and what they see their mom do, how they want to translate that behavior. And that could be, a good and a bad way, just based on family dynamics. But my mom will listen to this and she will hear this. So just want to make sure that she knows how great of a job she did and still does. So just a little side note there. But
that is so
the
sweet.
breathing,
I hope my boys say that to me in the future.
they will. We boys, when we can see, like, we got to get out of the teenage years. Those will be they might be a little rough. I was throwing some temper tantrums a little bit in the grocery store when I was a young boy because I didn't get what I wanted. But when at least when I got to college and my mom wasn't around to sort of guide me and help me and, steer me in the right direction or help me make these really tough choices, you think about like, oh shit, like she's awesome. And how much they love and they care. And then you become an adult and you start thinking about getting married and having kids. And you're like, I hope my mom is like around to still teach me some of these lessons that she had to teach me when I was younger. And hopefully I can teach my kids, and like it's whole domino effect of this, like, love, and I'm just really, really lucky. Like, I know a lot of people don't have this, and I'm fucking really lucky. And I count my blessings every day, but it's important to also talk about it, share that love. So anyways, not to get too mushy.
No, of course. And that's true what you said, that kids are watching. They are watching. They're going to look to their parents, and you got to regulate yourself so you can be there for your kids. And that also goes back to lifestyle, doing what you can, mind, body, spirit, everything. Because if you're a parent, yeah, your kid is watching you, and you got to do right for yourself and be there so you could be there for the kids as well. So no, I get it. And I can see you're grateful for your mom too. And that's amazing. I'm sure she's great.
She is. Yeah. Top notch. But you mentioned a couple of words that I want to circle back on just to make sure people fully understand them. Mm-hmm. One was circadian rhythm. Mm-hmm. If anyone listens to Dr. Andrew Huberman, he talks about that a lot, even though he's getting a little heat right now. His podcasts are still good. Anyways, can you explain what that means?
Yeah, so basically it goes to your sleep-wake cycle. And as simple as it is, it's very impactful. So your body naturally will produce hormones to keep you awake and to help you sleep. And why that's important and why it's a key factor, sleep, is because it's tied into your, I would say, cardiovascular health. So your heart and the rest of your body, your metabolism. And what that means is, so let's walk through what a normal good circadian rhythm is, right? Your sleep-wake cycle. Say you go to sleep before midnight. There's no blue screens because blue screens are disruptive to that. Blue screens meaning like your iPhone. Everyone is so connected to social media. So that will throw off your sleep hormone, your relaxing hormones, and your stress hormones. The big one is the cortisol. Cortisol is a big stressor. So if you're already wound up before you go to sleep, that's going to throw off your sleep-wake cycle. So that, trying to not have that blue screen, or at least blue screen blockers before you go to bed, so then your body can naturally release the melatonin, which is the sleep hormone, and decrease that stress hormone. The cortisol keeps you awake. So you have a good night's sleep, you wake up, and again, your body's naturally going to adjust those hormones. You want to wake up and be alert and be ready for the day. So then that sends signals down to the rest of your body. So that goes into how's your heart rate, how's your blood pressure, how's the rest of your body functioning. So if the first thing you do is reach for your phone again, then that throws off your cortisol again, right? So then if you're already, say, anxiety, right? Everyone is anxious these days. Everyone is depressed these days, right? So that's how it may show up through mood. So if your circadian rhythm, your sleep wake cycle is already dysregulated by certain small things, that will tie into the rest of your day. That will tie into down the road. So it affects your heart. It's called HRV, so heart rate variability, your heart. So your stress, and that what that ties into, if you're stressed most of the time, you're anxious, you're depressed, then your entire system is going to feel that as well. It's going to be imbalanced. And when I talk about HRV, it's one of the biomarkers that's linked to cardiovascular disease. You can actually track it on like Apple Watches, and also the quality of sleep that you get. All that is trackable, which is amazing. So you could start being conscious of how you can get better sleep cycle, which will tie into your stress. And then long term, I don't want to see you in the hospital, have a heart attack, right? Like that's where it starts, is those simple steps. And a lot of it is just putting the information out there, right? If it's simple, like, okay, I'm not going to look at my phone an hour before bed. I'm not going to look at my phone an hour before I wake up. I'm going to take a deep breath. I'm going to breathe. I'm going to get sunlight, the first sunlight. And that's very impactful too. You go outside, the sun hits your eyes, and that sends a signal to the rest of your brain to regulate that circadian rhythm again. So it's all these small, simple lifestyle things that people just need to know about and start working now instead of being too late and ending up in the hospital. So that's the simple but most impactful explanation of a circadian rhythm.
Fantastic. And then you mentioned regulating your nervous system, and I'm sure
Mm-hmm.
many people know what that means. But how do you go about regulating your nervous system?
Yeah, great question. And it's one of the most, I would say, well sought after topics when I'm out there in the community that people love to talk about because it resonates. Something resonates. And it goes to when you feel like your nervous system. So there's, I would say, two major pathways, and I'll keep it high level. So there's your resting, digesting, your parasympathetic nervous system, and then your fight or flight sympathetic nervous system. And you need both. So if you're in a very stressful situation, if you're being chased by a bear or a dog, if you're under attack, you want to run, right? You want that sympathetic fight or flight situation to work for you. But what the problem is, where it becomes dysregulated, is if you're continuously in that fight or flight mode. And that goes back to your body secreting chemical messengers. We'll keep it chemical messengers that tells your body to always be in fight or flight. And eventually you will reach that burnout. Your body will burn out. And then you'll start noticing symptoms such as brain fog, just libido is off, maybe your body composition changes. All those things will change. What you want to happen is regulate that resting, digesting, parasympathetic. And so an easy way to do that, if you're breath work, it goes back to things that lifestyle. So breath work, taking simple breathing techniques, meditation, mindfulness to break that cycle, because there's this nerve. This nerve is called the vagus nerve, and it connects your body, your nervous system. So even simple breath work will regulate you into that response. So when you notice you just need to catch your breath, go outside, take a deep breath, you'll notice that you will feel your mind will calm down, but also physically your heart rate will change and you'll start being able to calm yourself down. That's one way. What's interesting is more and more information is coming out that even when you talk about the nervous system with just your mind and interpretation and your body being off balance, what you put into your body makes a difference too. So if you eat highly processed foods, it's sending the same signal to your body that's causing that stress response. Isn't that interesting? Like it doesn't just go into every day what you call stress, but it's also what you put into your body. Then again, that goes into sleep and exercise because you're living a stressful, inflamed situation constantly. So you want to regulate it all. as many layers as you can.
Yeah, very interesting. I think everyone should be making their breath their best friend. Like it's the freest and most available resource that we have to us all the time, every single day, no matter what. It costs $0. It's right there with us all the time. And if we can use it as something just to, like someone's holding your hand, there's a best friend right next to you. Okay, I'm feeling a little off. I'm feeling a little anxious. It's not going to actually, I was going to say it's not going to change your whole world, but it actually might change your whole world. So, just getting in tune with it, practicing it over and over again, practicing it in moments where you don't have a stressful situation, so that when you do potentially get into that situation where, I don't know, you're at work and your boss just yelled at you, but you have to go back to your office and make this really important phone call. And this phone call could be like all the money you need to make your compensation for the next year. And you're like really nervous to get on this phone call, but you've practiced your deep breath work outside of this stressful situation. Now you use it in this stressful situation. And instead of taking that really hard conversation you have with your boss into this call and blow it, you're like, no. And then you go and crush it and you do the thing you're meant to do. Just simply because you're able to take that pause of like, hey, it's all good. Let me get centered back down. Then once this call is over, then I can go back to being angry at my boss. But at least let me do the thing that I need to do, which is this moment that I can control. And because I think when a lot of people hear like breath work or meditation or whatever the case may be, they're like, I just don't see how it can apply to my life. Like, why would I need to do that? I'm not a professional athlete. I'm not in high pressure, high stakes situations. And I'm like, this is your life. Your life is the most precious thing that you have. This is it. Like, this is all you got. You don't have a second run at this. You don't get this is not a dress rehearsal. Like, this is your whole life. Like, if this is the most precious thing you have. So of course, why wouldn't you use the most available tools we have to make this the best thing that you can possibly have? Because there's going to be shit that happens, like death and tragedy and heartbreak and horrible shit that's unexpected and uncontrollable. And so you have to be resilient through that. You talked about that's one of your core traits. That's what you've been your whole life. That's what you learn in the military. Like, it's who you are now. And that's a trait that anyone can learn, to be resilient through those things. And one of those things that can help us get grounded in the moment is this idea of using our breath as an anchor or our life force or whatever analogy you want to use. But that's how it can apply to your life. So it's not just for people who want to sit in a dark cave and, meditate all day. It's for real people in real time, like doing the hard days, like doing the work in their real life. And so I think that's always important to mention, because people think it's like some esoteric outside thing that may not help them, but it can help you
Oh, no,
immediately.
absolutely. And I definitely want to add in, I mean, there is power in the pause. There really is. And take it a step further. If people want even another extended scientific explanation, there's imaging that backs it up. So if you look at brain imaging, you look at an anxious brain versus a calmer brain, the brain waves even change. So even the whole mechanism I just mentioned, it eventually, stress kills you, right? It affects your heart, it affects your whole body, but your brain waves. So in the moment, whether you have some sort of relationship, it doesn't have to be at work. Maybe it's at work. You have a relationship with people, with family, with friends, or whatever. And it applies to everyday life. So if you're super busy and you don't have time to tackle go outside, go get some movement, or like you said, you don't have much time, but you have a breath. And that simple breath changes your brain waves. So it's quite impactful and useful.
Yeah. How do you because there are some people who they've never really felt good their whole life. And so they think like this is how they're meant to feel. Like, this is normal. I feel this way. I feel like crap all the time. My stomach hurts all the time when I eat. I'm always tired at 4 p.m. Like, this is how everyone feels. So this is normal for me. Like when people come to see you, maybe they're not feeling that exact way, but how do you start to sort of break those patterns? Like, it's actually not normal. Like, you can feel great. Like, that is a possibility.
Yeah, it's really listening to the patient and reassuring them that conventional medicine has conditioned everyone to accept being tired and not feeling their best. Like, same thing as you're going to get old and you're going to age, you're going to be decrepit. We've just been conditioned. And I just said, it's about sitting down and being honest. No, you don't have to feel this way. There's more we can do. And once I talk through the personalized approach and validate them, because it's true, you don't have to feel miserable, and give an explanation, and let's dive deep. Let's listen to your story. Like my first visit with everyone, I spent at least 60 to 90 minutes. And that in itself is so empowering for patients and motivating that, yes, I don't have to feel this way. There are several things we can do to maximize feeling better and thriving. Yeah.
Yeah. This quote, whenever I talk about this stuff with experts like you, this quote always pops into my head. So I guess I'll share it for probably for the 750th time on this podcast. But it's no measure of health to be well adjusted to a profoundly sick society. And I think people really think that's the case. Like what we just talked about, like, oh, if everyone's tired at 4 p.m., that means it's normal. But our society is actually quite sick, not just in terms of our mental health crisis or our obesity, but just like the culmination of all of these things in the way we live our life and our healthy habits. And it's sort of a rebellious act to do all of these things, right? To eat well, to cold plunge, to sauna, to exercise, to take care of your relationships, to put great stuff in your body, to exercise every day, to lift heavy shit, all of that stuff is sort of a rebellious act. And I think people just need people like you to give them the permission that they're allowed to live their best life. Like you're allowed to unleash the best version of you, and that's possible. And so I think that's really cool too.
Absolutely. You shouldn't have society tell you that it's normal when something is off.
Yeah. Yeah. Another thing that I wanted to talk to you about, which also relates to everything, is the gut brain axis, gut brain health. That's a really popular topic nowadays, but I don't think a lot of people understand how impactful it is. And so what's going on in there? Like, what could you tell us about that without giving us, well, actually I would take a 3-hour lecture, but maybe not now.
We're both in DFW. We can make it happen. Let's go.
That'd be awesome. Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, yes, absolutely. Gut brain axis, there's so much information, and even conventional medicine, the big Ivy Leagues are coming out with that data. So functional medicine has been on this for a long time. So I think the biggest piece of research that is now being discussed is something called leaky gut, also known as intestinal permeability. So the gut is truly central to your entire body, not only, I would say, location wise, but how impactful it is. It connects you. What you put into your body, it connects you to the outer world. And I always go back to food is not as it used to be. And the regulations in the United States, we are consuming things that aren't close to what our ancestors ate. Everything's so processed. And when we put those into our body, you're going to break it down and you may have a reaction. So when you look at gluten, look at wheat, the way wheat is made, look at dairy. It's so highly processed with fillers, maybe some hormones. So when you ingest it, you're going to see more and more issues pop up. So it connects not only to your gut brain, like we said, it connects to even your immune system. So you're seeing a lot of allergies. You're seeing a lot of autoimmune issues like joint pain. Sometimes the things that you used to eat, if you eat them, they give you some issues in your stomach, right? Like you may feel bloated, you may feel cramping, and you just overall retain a lot more fluid because you're inflamed. So what that happens is, going to that phenomenon, the leaky gut, we have inside our intestinal system, there's a barrier, right? There's this one small barrier. This is going to, think of it as a gate. So you eat food, it's going to break down, your nutrients are going to break down your protein, fats, carbs. You're going to take down what you need, and it's going to absorb what's supposed to. Normal barrier. What happens is, sometimes, say you have wheat. Wheat, again, it's not the same as it used to be. So maybe your body is reacting negatively to it. So over time, this barrier becomes loose because it's inflamed. It's eventually going to let all the components of food that you're eating come through, and it goes through into your bloodstream and spreads everywhere else. And eventually it may be seen as foreign. So if you see phenomenons as gluten intolerance, sometimes different components of wheat. So your body is thinking it's foreign. That leads into a different phenomenon. Yes, you will have those issues like you can't eat gluten anymore, but then now your body's susceptible because it's not a barrier anymore. Other things may be slipping through. So maybe you can't eat dairy anymore, maybe certain fruits and vegetables. So your gut is so inflamed that it's spreading to the rest of your body. So then there's autoimmune mimicry, simply meaning that your immune system is attacking itself. So there's molecules that deposit. So say you have joint pain, maybe it's related to something you ate because your body's inflamed and attacking itself. So that's just one aspect of how the gut is so important. It's also living, right? You have a microbiome, you have good bacteria, bad bacteria. And all of that ties into your body too, your immune system, your gut brain. There's even Harvard came out with a lot of data on this, is even mood, your gut brain axis is bidirectional. So if you're inflamed in your gut, it's of course inflamed to your brain. What you eat, a lot of information on like ketogenic diet, right? Because if you think of it, ketogenic, it's not processed carbs. So you're cleaning out your system automatically. And it just goes back and forth. So we could go on all day, but just high level, that the gut, what you put into your body, if you come to a functional medicine doctor versus a conventional doctor, I think that's a big takeaway too, is say you're having all these issues and you get a full GI workup, which is good. You want to make sure nothing bad is happening. But your scopes, your colonoscopy, your EGD looks clean, yet you're still having symptoms, then functional medicine will dive deeper. Well, are you having a food intolerance, right? Like what is going on that's causing you to feel this way? Number one. And then again, gut brain. So mood, right? What's going on with your stress level? It's all connected. So that's how we dive deep into how gut is connected to everything and what you can do simply to get down to root cause.
Yeah, very interesting. Very interesting. Because I think a lot about mental health. I work heavily in sort of that field, and some of these same issues persist, like you're talking about, with sort of this medication first approach, especially when it comes to seeing a psychiatrist and they see you for 5-10 minutes and they've basically figured out your whole life, and then they give you some pills and then you're off on the races. And but we're not addressing the underlying issue, because I think what a lot of people miss when it comes to mental health issues is that it's not always psychological. If my life just is not good, I don't have food regularly, I don't barely have a place to live, my family members are abusive, I live in a hard neighborhood, that's not psychological. That's my environment is awful, and so I am fucking sad and depressed and anxious and I don't know what to do. That has nothing to do with you needing some pills. Someone needs, hopefully can help you sort out those things and create a better place for you to thrive and get your basic needs met. And now, so that has to be, the root cause has to be addressed. Now there's some times where we just feel sort of sad for quote unquote no reason. But there's also going to be an underlying reason there. And so we always have to dig a little bit deeper to figure that out. And then once all of those measures are exhausted and I still feel not very good, like we said before, then potentially medication is really beneficial, because I've witnessed my sister Rachel, who lost her life in 2018 due to suicide. Medication extended her life. So I don't demonize the idea of medication. She needed it because we as a family exhausted all measures, and she had very severe mental health conditions. So if she hadn't been on it, I think something would have happened potentially earlier, but it extended her life as long as it possibly could. And so I do think there is a place for that stuff, but basic fundamental habits like you're expressing are the most important things to touch on first. Because if you're just a person who maybe can't afford a functional medicine doctor, or you just are trying to figure it out on your own, start with these basic core tenets of putting like the proper food in your mouth and moving and thinking and sleeping and trying to get your basic needs met and all of these sorts of things, and then move from there. And then that would be, my takeaway from that. But anyways.
Yeah. No, oh gosh, I'm so sorry you guys had to go through that. That is truly, that's sad. But I could see why you're so big on advocating on mental health. And
Yeah.
what another tool that has been, it's slowly coming to conventional medicine too. But if you look at additional tools that, if medicine, sometimes, they're great, but there's a small percentage of non-responders, right?
Hmm.
Non-responders to the traditional antidepressants, just overall, I'm going to label it antidepressants because there's a whole bunch of different classes. But what I want to get to is there's so much information out there now and showing beneficial uses of plant medicine. So if you think
Yeah.
about like ketamine and psilocybin, those are quite impactful. And then you have someone who knows what they're doing so they can guide you through therapy and dig deep to do the work. But those are additional tools. But because like you said, to get to root cause, you don't want to just throw medicine. It's there if you need it, but there's also
Hmm.
another tool. Plant medicine is coming forward to help fill in that gap, and it's so impactful. So even if you're on antidepressants and you want to wean off, doing the plant medicine, doing the work, doing the therapy is so impactful. Then add in the lifestyle, right? Like how are you eating? Are you getting outside? How are your relationships? Just so much out there in your toolbox that you don't have to be lost in feeling that way mentally.
Yeah. Yeah, I had Dr. Dave Rabin on this show a couple weeks ago,
Mm-hmm.
and he's big into the psychedelic community. And for the first time, and I think ever in the history of mental health treatment, they're not going to say it right now, but
Mm-hmm.
soon when these trials keep running and they get a little bit more data,
Yeah.
they are almost positive that they can use the word cure for your mental health or your mental illness, and that word has never been used before. And so that gets me really excited to
Yeah.
know that their symptoms can go completely away. They don't have to feel this way anymore. They can get quote unquote cured and
Mm-hmm.
live their best life. So when he was talking about some of the research they have found and some of the studies that have happened with these psychedelic medicines, along with really intense psychotherapy, I think
Mm-hmm.
the two have to go hand in hand. You're still doing the work with this additive thing. Is really quite it's right quite cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but last thing I'll touch with you about
Mm-hmm.
before I let you go, and that is the importance of protein.
Mm-hmm.
It's your favorite. Tell us why we need some protein.
You've been listening.
Of
Yes.
course, of course.
So, protein, oh my goodness. Let's just talk about why overall Americans are misguided. We have been misguided, guys. So, if you look at the RDA is there. So, the recommended daily allowance is there to prevent deficiency. Now, that's just conventional. You don't want to be deficient. That's zero point 0.8 grams of kilograms per body weight. That's not enough to optimize. To be optimal, to thrive, you want to get to, so the good range, at least try to get to 1 gram per kilogram. But if you can be optimal and get to the 1.5 to 1.8 range, that's going to be great. So that tells you the information that you're getting, you're already under undernourished on that. You want to be optimal. And this is why. So as you age, I would say, like, if you compare a kid, right? Like, you got those 9-year-olds running around, they can have like 10 grams of protein and they're good. They're going to make muscle. And as we age, especially as we get into I'll see, like, even if you hit 40, if you hit 40 or getting to 40, you need more protein. So your threshold, you need to have at least 30 grams of protein per meal to hit that threshold to make protein, to make muscles and to preserve it. So that's one. And why is it important? Well, muscle, you want to build the muscle because it's protective. It protects your bones. It, of course, helps with body composition. Who doesn't want that? It keeps you strong. It helps maintain the rest of your hormones. And it balances stress. if you look at inflammation, it's anti-inflammatory. It helps with insulin resistance, metabolism, but also you want to eat the protein, but you also have to make sure you add resistance training. So the lifting the weights, all that will preserve it. And this becomes more important as you age, because eventually you want to prevent from falling and becoming debilitated, right? You want to thrive. You want to be optimal. So you could be like one of those 89-year-olds still looking good, doesn't need a cane, get that protein in, get that weightlifting in. And that's why it's important. Just a couple high level reasons. And people ask me all the time, how am I supposed to get at least 30 grams per meal? Well, get creative. You don't always have to run to, although it depends. If you're non-vegetarian, I always say animal meat, clean animal meat, grass-fed, pasture-raised, whatever you can get your hands on, clean is going to give you the most optimal right type of protein, because then you break down, well, what branch chain amino acids, this and that. The most important one to build muscle is leucine. So you can get it from animal meat. You can also get it from vegetable sources, but you're going to probably have to supplement regardless. So you could do good high-end protein powders, whey protein if you're able to have dairy. If not, pea protein's okay. But you want to make sure they have a good amino acid profile to build that muscle. Then there's nuts, seeds. Like you could be creative. And so people, like my patients, are like, well, how am I supposed to have it in the morning? I'm tired of eggs. Put a smoothie. You can get creative. Add a new ingredient into your smoothie and knock out what you need. Eat the colors of the rainbow in one smoothie. And it works. Like so many people come to me now and they're like, oh my gosh, I'm hitting my protein. I feel good. Like I see a change in my body, my mood. Like I feel good, Dr. Remina. I'm like, I love hearing that.
Yes. Get your protein and lift some weights, baby. That's it.
Yes.
That's what you got to do.
Exactly.
That's it. That's the magic juice. That magic juice has helped me since I was 13 years old, and it hasn't failed me yet. And I plan on lifting as many weights and eating as much protein as I can till I'm no longer able to do it. So, great. That's amazing. I'm glad a doctor has co-signed my my lifestyle habits.
Yes.
So it's perfect. It's perfect. But thank you, Dr. Remina. Where should people go if they want more of you?
Of course. Well, thank you for having me again. This has been great. You guys can find me on my Instagram. It's Dr. Remina, DrRemina. Also can find me at my website. Again, www.drremina.com. And then podcasts. Have some information on there. So contact me. Would love to hear from you.
Yeah, just click the link below. They're all going to be there. But thank you very much for your time, your energy, everything you put out into the world. I appreciate you and look forward to hanging out in person soon.
Yes. Thank you so much again.
Thank you very much for tuning into that episode. And if you enjoyed it, click right here for another full-length episode of the podcast. And please don't forget to subscribe. But most importantly, above all else, please take good care of yourselves and others. And I'll see you next time. Lots of love. Cheers.